Hey, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider, and we're here at the Collider studio at the Kia Telluride Supper Suite in Park City. First of all, a huge congrats on the movie to you guys. I'm here talking to everyone behind Possessor. I want to jump right in and do the generic question because everyone watching this will have not seen the movie yet. So how have you been telling your friends and family about the film, like what it's about?
Just very, very vaguely and carefully. I've been avoiding telling them anything.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
So have you not told like people like even a log line?
It's about someone who controls another person using brain implants, and the intention is to get them to commit an assassination.
One of the things that I dig about movies like this is when the technology involved is something that's like, on the cusp of like maybe being able to happen. Is that something that's always fascinated you? Like what drew you to that kind of storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting, there's an intersection between the science and the philosophy of it because it's actually rooted in old neuroscience from the 50s and 60s. They were experimenting with brain implants back then, and so they were able to control people's hands, and it was a bit more of a loose time for neuroscience. And through brain implants, they could control emotions and behavior of people. So it is rooted in that history. But then philosophically, it's very interesting because it's a question of if someone can move your hand or if they can get you to fall in love with someone by stimulating a part of your brain, who are you then, and what is your will actually?
100, absolutely. For the two of you, describe, I guess, I mean, you must read a lot of scripts. What was it about this script that really you felt compelling and you were like, I have to be in, I want to be in this?
Well, for me, it was actually Brandon's first movie. I loved his first movie. And then read this script, was really excited about it, met him, and I think we like had a cup of tea and I was like, can I do this? And you were like, yeah. And then that was it. That was basically, it was a really long meeting.
Right. I was sitting there being like, how am I going to convince her to do the film?
And then I asked him. I was like, I would love to do this, trying to be cool and everything. That was it. I just think Brandon's extraordinarily talented, and the script, it's difficult because there's so little that I want to say in order to keep it this fresh, wonderful, untouched oddity that it is. But the script was beautiful. His first film I thought was so innovative and interesting, and that's why.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it always starts kind of with the script because before I met Brandon, I read it first, and what drew me to it was there is an elegance, I think, in its sparseness, and it's kind of a funny line that you can be drawn sometimes with sparseness in scripts because it can be either a maturity or lack of knowing what to write. You know what I mean? But truthfully, but
truly the latter in this case.
This one, no, but this one, I think there's like a maturity to it, and then for an actor, it's like there's room to kind of play. You can like between the lines in that way.
Completely.
And also, it was an original idea, which I really appreciated. It wasn't based on a book or something like that, which is fine. But I feel like there's a lot of scripts now are adaptation of something or other. And the fact that it was a completely original idea, I was very impressed by. And then I met Brandon, and we really clicked and. I couldn't wait to do it. Waited a little while, but I couldn't wait to do it.
And part of the innovation was talking to him about how he's cinematically going to achieve everything, because there are a lot of things that were cooked up basically in a very small room between you and Kareem, our incredible DP, that hadn't been cooked up before. They were trying out so much. We didn't know what that was going to look like. We didn't know how it was going to work.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the film yet. I'm watching it for the first time tonight because I wanted to see it in its entirety and with good sound. And I know that I presume it's going to be a cinematic feast. So
which is why we're doing this interview before you see it, so that when the crushing disappointment sets in,
you're not going to be crushingly disappointed. I have to ask, and this is not a there's a little blood in this movie. Do you think there? Actually, let me rephrase that. There's a lot of blood. Talk a little bit about like that balance of violence and what you're willing to put on screen, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, two things. I think in general, in a way, there's something to me that's less disturbing about explicit violence in films, because the violence plays as horrifying in a way that violence is horrifying. I find it more unsettling if you have really sanitized violence and, someone shoots 200 people over the course of the film, they never bleed, it's a PG-13 action movie. To me, that's actually weirder and more unsettling than a film that depicts violence in a really visceral way. But also for this film in particular, the violence is very narrative. I mean, the way it's depicted has a lot to do with the character's psychology without giving too much away. There are different approaches to it in different scenes, and it has a lot to do with the character's experience and relationship with violence.
By the way, I strongly agree with your statement about PG-13 movies and how much violence can be depicted. It's insane to me. As you said, you can kill 200 people and it's PG-13. It's crazy. Every movie, no matter, there's always limitations of money and time. Talk a little bit about what you were nervous to be able to pull off in the time and money that you had, and maybe if you guys felt any of that.
I mean, it's a science fiction world, but it's kind of an alternate universe science fiction world that feels very familiar. I think anytime you're doing that, there's some game that you're playing where you want it to feel different. You want it to not just feel like you didn't have the money to do a huge future world. So going into it, not sort of, I guess, finding that balance where it's a different world. It's science fiction, but it doesn't feel cheap. Was something. I don't know, but it kind of, it ended up not being too much of a struggle in that way. I think a lot of the effects we were doing were practical, which ended up being, I would say, better but also cheaper. And it was never really conceived of as a massive sci-fi film with hover cars or anything. So, yeah.
Totally.
I mean, I think I kind of like a healthy amount of limitations. I think when it comes to that, I think if you have too much time or too much money, sometimes you can kind of go overboard with ideas and decisions. But when you're limited, I think it kind of forces you. At least I'll speak from an actor perspective or my own perspective, that I enjoy the time limitations sometimes. Sometimes it'd be nicer to do more takes if you have time, but we never actually had that issue on this film, and nothing ever felt rushed. But I do think a certain amount of limitations that come with time or budget, I think can be good.
It was actually a pleasure, because we walk onto set, and I feel like the beginning of every one of Brandon's directorial sentences was this is going to seem really weird, ... and then something unique and very odd would be achieved. But they were so, I mean, we had an amazing crew, and everybody was so prepared. The production design were excellent. We were so ready to make this film by the time that we made it, and it was so mapped out in Brandon's mind. There were some times when I wanted to be, I think I said this to you, I wanted to be, what's that dreadful movie with Meg Ryan and somebody who gets made small and put in somebody's ear? I shouldn't say dreadful, it's wonderful. Anyway, wanted to be a small person and be like,
Downsizing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually quite like that movie, to be honest, if I'm really honest. And to be put inside of his head, just to know exactly what he was looking for, because sometimes it was so specific. But because you were so clear about that, I think it was we didn't need a lot of time, Yeah,
it must have been a little bit strange for you guys, because I think on the one hand, we spent a lot of time developing it so we knew exactly what we wanted to do. And on the other hand, also to work within those limitations. Sometimes we'd be jumping around a lot, or we'd be getting very specific stuff that was for a particular effect or part of a scene or something like that. And so there was a little, a sort of dance where we were trying to fit everything in.
I have a million questions for you guys, but I have to stop. And also, because I don't want to do any spoilers, when we can talk more freely about the movie, I look forward to continuing our conversation. But for now, I just want to say sincerely congrats on the movie. And I hope it's a huge hit for you guys here at Sundance. Thank you so much for coming by our studio.
Thanks
Thanks for having us.